Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Tristan Rallings, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Sergeant Paul Whitten. We warmly welcome the family of Trooper Percival James Cameron, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If you are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of the more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations over more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Trooper Percival James Cameron. Percy Cameron was born on the 23rd of February 1883 to Robert and Sarah Cameron of Quorn in South Australia's mid-north. Percy spent his early years in Quorn before the family moved south to take up property at Mount Compass, just to the south of Adelaide. As an adult, Cameron moved to Western Australia where he worked as a labourer until he had secured enough capital to begin farming. He took over a small farm, doing well enough to take over the larger one in Wickerpin, a town in WA. Percy Cameron leased his farm and enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in early 1915 and began his training with the Light Horse, leaving Australia for active service with reinforcements to the 10th Light Horse Regiment on the 26th of April 1915. After some time in Egypt, he arrived on the Gallipoli Peninsula in July. On the 5th of August 1915, Cameron wrote home to his parents. I have been in the trenches a fortnight, have seen the place where the Australians have landed and consider it to be a wonderful feat that every man that's at home should stop and raise a hat whenever meeting him. He described the heights above Anzac Cove as a huge rabbit warren and assured his family that he was in good health and spirits, and must say the authorities looked after the men well. This was Trooper Cameron's last letter home before he took part in the ill-fated attack on the Turkish positions at what was now known as the Neck. In the early hours of the 7th of August, the men of the 10th Light Horse Regiment got into position and waited for artillery bombardment meant to neutralise the Turkish machine guns opposite. At 4 a.m, a naval destroyer opened fire on the Neck, but although it fired for half an hour, it had very little effect on the Turkish positions. The attack was launched by two lines of infantry from the 8th Light Horse Regiment. The 10th Light Horse Regiment's War Diary records, quote, almost immediately, the first line of ours had left the trenches, enemy rifle machine gun fire had opened on our parapets. The first and second lines of charging light horsemen were mown down by heavy fire. Although a request was made to Brigade Headquarters to stop the attack, 10th Light Horse Regiment was ordered to continue. A third and then fourth line of light horsemen was sent over with similar results. It was not until a major called out to see the situation that it was decided that it was impossible for men to move forward a yard and live with such a hail of well-aimed and well-distributed rifle and machine gun fire. Therefore, the attack was called off. On a small narrow bridge of land known as the Neck, more than 200 men were killed and many more were wounded in shockingly short periods of time. The regiments were in a state of confusion and it took some time to determine who had been killed and who had been taken away for medical treatment. The Cameron family were initially told that their son had been wounded in the action, and later they were told because they had no news that the wounds were serious, they could assume that their son was progressing satisfactorily. In fact, he was missing after the attack on the Neck, and his father was shocked to read in the newspaper that he had actually been killed in action. His father wrote to the officer in charge of the base records asking, please ascertain where the mistake is, and will you confer an obligation to his sorrowing parents. Despite their hopes that their son might be still alive, a court of inquiry determined that Percival James Cameron had been killed in action at the Neck on the 7th of August 1915. His body was never recovered, and today is commemorated on the Lone Pine Memorial. He was 32 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, amongst the 62,000 Australians who died while serving on the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the Pool of Reflection. But this is one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Trooper Percival James Cameron, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in hope of a better world.
If you are able, please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as the wheat of the left grow old. Age shall not weary them, or the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.